Hello sailors, you're watching the Dodgy Kebab, and this video is a review of the Burning Crusade World of Warcraft private server L4G. Now, L4G stands for Looking for Group, which I think is a bit of a silly name, especially when everyone just uses the abbreviation, because then you enter the dangerous territory of someone calling it Looking for Ganking or Licking for Girls. Either way, Looting for Gold is a Burning Crusade progressive instant level 60 ×1 rate server, and since Play TBC went into meltdown after the whole 5 bug riddled days it was online, people seem to be desperate for a good Burning Crusade server. After all, the community loves a bit of old school.
Most people wouldn't know old school if it kicked them up the arse. I'll show you a true slice of old school.
So you start on Loving for Gingers, and you're first greeted by the huge Murloc who will boost you instantly to level 60. Not quite what I'd call a quality opener, but what does my friend Mr. Gamesmaster Reviews think of this ridiculous dancing giant NPC?
What the fuck? What the fuck?
He gives me level 60, asks what sort of gear I'd like, gives me a horse, then sends me off to a class trainer in Stormwind. Here, you can now learn every spell for free. The gear they give you to start off with is quite good. It's not tier 3 or anything, but okay. I headed off to the Pig and Whistle to sell any crap that was in my bags, but the NPC didn't want to stop. Then she went fucking bananas. Having found out that I'd exactly sod all gold, I thought it would probably be a wise idea just to run the Stockades very quickly so I had some change for repairs and taxes in the Outland. What I found inside was shocking.
Not enough rage.
Outside of the dungeons, and the summer event is totally broken in every single way. Nothing at all works. Most of the NPCs were missing, the dancing pole that buffs you didn't work, and the torch tossing was a shambles. To top all this off, I was about to use the Hearthstone to warp straight to the Blasted Lands, as that's where it's set to by default. But I thought no, all the flight paths are open, and this pathfinding is clearly the work of skilled artisans, so let's have a closer look. I could recreate falling through the ground at will, and although the pathfinding and VMAPs are not so bad that you can shoot through walls, they were pretty bad. Were is the correct choice of words, but more on that later, because now I want to highlight a problem that I have with many instant level servers. Although all my fighting abilities are level 300, all my trade professions are level 1. So if I was to go to the Outland right now, like liposuction for Greg wants me to, I can't do any crafting of any sort at all. And that won't do, so I decided I should skill up my professions to 300 before I even set foot in the Outland. But I don't want to bore you with all that whole process, so cue the music!
Approaching to give it your best, and you've got to reach your prime. That's when you need to push yourself to the test and show us the passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. Take some montage. Show a lot of things happening at once, remind everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement to show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. Take some montage. Always fade out in a montage. If you fade out, it seems.
I got to level 250 on the mall and I got bored. I asked the GM to boost them to 300. Now, onto the Dark Portal. So, I got my first proper quest, and turns out that not all the NPCs run away from you. This one is behaving. I got my master cooking skill, then did a quest. Mined a bit, did some quests in the mine. Burnt the towers down, and then I got shafted for my loot. See here, I can't loot the mob, so I set the loot to free-for-all just in case the server thinks the rest of my group, which are in a totally different zone, are somehow entitled to this loot. So I kill another mob, still can't loot him, kill some more mobs, can't loot them either. What the fuck? The bombing runs on both the Legion front and Abysmal Shelf worked fine, but then I found another bug, this time the Unyielding Souls quest. Spellcasters are total retards. You pull one and they run towards you only to stop and begin wondering if they left the back door unlocked. So yes, you can just pick them off with range attacks if you don't want to get hurt, or you could do a little dance to highlight how bad this is. If you're going to melee range, you're still at a huge advantage because they won't use any spells. See here, I'm smashing this bitch and she's only using basic attacks. That's pretty pants, and all the more surprising when you consider that they have things like the Dark Portal battle scripted correctly, and not just correctly, really fucking well. Plus, a lot of the guards are walking around Shatrath sitting almost their correct paths. I could complete every quest I started, from taking PvP objectives, collection quests, as well as the time I had to kill an elite mob. But I'm sure you want to see something a bit more complex, so the Exorcism with Colonel Jules is a benchmark of mine. Let's take a look. So you start the main quest on a hold, and you're sent out to take care of some fell spirits. By take care, they mean kill orcs and then kill their souls, because fuck the hordes. This part all works fine, but I don't remember the stone you put down ever being called a relic bunny. You get back and then you begin the main Exorcism quest. This part is scripted much better than other servers, but lacks the fine-tuning found on Warmane. If anything, it's quite like Hellground, and there's a good reason for that. A good portion of the Living for Gash code is actually taken directly from the Hellground core that can be found online. The more technically minded among you might be able to spot how close the Loaded for Ganges code is to the Hellground code, if you go and have a look yourself. Another clue can be found on the Hellground forum, and L4G developer Trench Fox actually asked Hellground for advice on using the core, as you can see here. Is this a bad thing? Well, the Hellground code is online to help the community, and it is doing just that. Plus, Hellground is a great TBC server. If I was going to make one, I'd use whatever code of theirs I could get too. And thanks to Katouche for the core information and links on this one. Let's take a look at Hellfire Ramparts now. Being TBC, I helped use the Summoning Stone to get the lazy members of the party to the dungeon, and then off we went. It was all very smooth. The first boss has two guys that walk with him, and this was scripted very well. We took him down, then the second boss, and progressed to the final boss, who is also scripted correctly. After this, there was a bit more fighting before I was told that the pathfinding had been fixed. So, to be fair, I ran back to the Stockades to give it another shot. Lo and behold, the pathfinding is now correct. Okay, it's not actually perfect, but it's much better than it was. Anyway, came out, dodged the Fell Reaver, and then jumped into a Blood Furnace group. All started out okay, but once I got into the room with the first lot of prisoners, I found a problem. I was actually able to range pull the mobs through the prison doors, and unbelievably, they actually ran right through the doors and come and attack me. This wasn't the only problem. We beat the Maker, progressed to the next room, and that part was fine. We pulled the lever, but the boss refused to come into the room. Instead, he chose the AoE Poison Blast members of the group that didn't block the line of sight. Once he had fucked us up enough for his liking, he charged in full pelt and finished off everyone apart from me and the level 70 guide. I stayed alive just long enough to help bring him down. After this, we did the rest of the dungeon with no problem. On the way out, a staff member appeared and said hi. Turns out they're keeping an eye on the whole thing. I did many more quests, like taking down fell cannons, big elite mobs, as well as the slightly problematic quest called Cleansing the Waters. The item has to be used in the exact pinpoint spot, and not just a few yard wide area. Once the mob appears, he won't auto-attack you, and the problems escalate further when I started fighting him. I was doing my auto-attack move successfully, but every other move just gave me the warning saying that I wasn't within line of sight of the mob. Then, just when you think shit can't plummet any lower, At this point, I put the wheels in motion to get level 70 test account by speaking to the staff. In the meantime, let's go through some points of the server. As I said at the beginning of this review, Lost 4 Grand is a progressive TBC server. Right now, tier 4 equipment is available, so you can raid Karazhan, but not Black Temple or the Sunwell. Hell, the Sunwell doesn't even appear in Shattrath City, nor does the portal to the Isle of Quel'Danis. The latency is pretty good, as I'm sure you can see here. This is a true blue PvP server, so if you have a glorious Alliance character, you can't also have a smelly old Hortoon in the same account. Why you'd want to do such a thing is beyond me, but it really doesn't make much sense. On retail, you'd have to pay for an account, so you'd have to pay money to actually have an Alliance and Horde on the same realm. But when it's free to create an account, why would you bother having this barrier still? The last thing to talk about before we move on is the economy. Now, the prices on the auction house are fine and about right for a population of this size on a TBC server. Although the problem, not with that many people being crafters, is extremely apparent. You rarely find crafted gear in the auction house, and I think that ruins the overall feel of the world just a tiny bit. But it does make selling crafted gear very easy, as you're one of the very few people actually bothering to do a profession. But we can't talk about the economy here without mentioning the goddamn constant gold selling spam. I've never played on a server where it's been so consistent like this. It's all the fucking time. A bunch of Chinese gold sellers are trying to con you into spending money on their website. And it's clearly a huge con. I mean, look at this. You can buy gold from Astarius. Yeah, that seems fucking legit. Right, let's move on. I got a level 70 test account from the staff and headed to everyone's favourite zone, Nagrand. There is a quest where you have to use a trampoline to get up a tree. I wanted to check it out. There is a pre-quest where all you have to do is a little bit of mob farming, but then you're on the main quest. So you click the trampoline to activate it and you have to steer to the tree branch. That has an egg that you need to grab. But whenever I tried to, it just would not work. No, 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 why? Fuck you, bastard! So next I went over to attempt the Ring of Blood, which to me has always sounded like some sort of anal rampage. Anyway, I got a group together and we smashed the Ring of Blood. Let's progress on. I entered into an heroic underbog group. The staff had geared me up and even given me all the heroic keys, so in my mind I was ready. I did start to think something was dodgy when the group was so determined to crowd control one of the two opening mobs. But when I got to the second group of mobs in the dungeon, I found out why everyone was so worried.
Allahu Akbar! صليل الصوارم نشيد الأباء ودرب القتال طريق الحياة.
Did we wipe because the idea of using the mage's ice block as a form of crowd control wasn't very good? No. Did we wipe because DPS couldn't manage their threat? No. We wiped this place over and over because it's so over-tuned. It's a joke. These guys are hitting for an average of 5k and critting for 16. Oh, people wondering Warmane dialed up the Wrath of Lich King rates to 250%, but here you can be one-shotted by dungeon trash mobs. We came to the crushing realisation that we were not going to get anywhere in the Underbog. We headed off to Hellfire to do an heroic ramparts. This was the challenge, but at least it wasn't the total rape we had just experienced. We got round the first corner. When we got back online, a party member called Prol reported that he was for some reason flying on a Griffin and had no idea where it was taking him. We legged it out the instance to the meeting stone to summon him back. We were only inside a few minutes and then... Did you see that? When I logged back in, I actually see Prol flying away on a Griffin. I thought I was playing Lesbians for Jeff, not Ashran. Anyway, we got back, summoned Prol again, then started on the first boss. However, by this point, the group had grown tired and started making mistakes, and at heroic level, you just can't afford to do that. This wipe was the end of my PvE for that day. The next logical step was to go and give the Horde a slap, so we beat down an Overlord, cleared out their auction house, ploughed right through the centre of Scumtown, killed all the battleground NPCs, and then sat around and killed anyone that was not part of the master race. Mana Tombs on normal is up next, and it works just fine for the most part. We took down bosses, many mobs, the escort quest works fine, and a mob got stuck in the wall. We should have finished the dungeon, but we had a fucking huntard who repeatedly kept attacking mobs in a different order to how they were marked, and used his pet to pull while people were still drinking. It ended up causing 3 wipes in a row in the final room, and everybody quit. Foolishly, I gave PvP a try. The queue time seemed quite short, and I got on a Raffi basin group very quickly. But it was over pretty soon as we were totally outnumbered, and Horde being Horde, they decided to camp the graveyard. But that's Horde players really. Cheap scum. Alan, what do you think of the Horde?
Scum. Subhuman scum.
Queuing again got me into a war song match, but it seemed the whole server wanted to do AV instead, so I joined that. AV was good, and if you're looking for a deeper analysis into PvP than that, you're really in the wrong place. But to end this PvP section of the video, let's look at something that I found. Now, I was playing the Warsong Gulch battle, and as you can see, I was trying my hardest. I had the flag, and I was making a break for it. But the people in my team didn't move very much, and didn't talk at all. They both had Chinese sounding names, and belonged to a very Chinese sounding guild. They just sat back and gave the Horde players a victory. I was pissed off, and it was very clear what was happening. The Horde were using Chinese power leveling services to rank up. I spoke to one of the Horde after the match, and he basically admitted what he did. I reported this on the website, and a few days later the staff banned the players involved. So well done, staff. Back to PvE now, and you're looking at a Steam Vault group on normal. It all went fine, and we carefully took out the trash, and the bosses were fine too. The final boss was also scripted correctly, and we slapped him around a lot, and every so often he would run for a different distiller to activate his attack. We beat him, but I was happy to see all this working correctly. This is the Shadow Lab on normal that you're looking at right now. Like the Steam Vault, everything is fine here. Mob positions are all correct, the bosses work fine, and even parts where you have mob scripting, they're all working great. The dungeon was fine, but there was a sore point at the end for me. The guild I was in was doing weekly runs to Karazhan, and this day I had an invite spot. They told me to get ready and leave the group I was in, but they went and finished the raid without me because no one wanted to lose their spot, despite it being promised to me. The only thing I could gather from seeing them do run after run of Karazhan is that it does work. So here we are at the end, and what's my conclusion? Some things on this server are scripted brilliantly. The Dark Portal fight in Hellfire is the best I've seen it on any server. However, I did run into a lot of bugs. It might be that I'm finally getting better at all this and I know where to look for weaknesses, but either way, it's not the flawless experience I thought it might be when I started. Overtuned content is the biggest problem I have. When Karazhan is easier than doing Underbog on Heroic, then something's really wrong. The staff here are nice people, and they do one thing that makes them really deserve a lot of respect from the entire private server community, and that is that they make their core publicly available on GitHub. Granted, it's a mix of stock Trinity core and the Hellbound core, but either way it's not bad. There are a lot of things to be fixed, but they do seem to be active in their work. If you want a challenge and TBC progression, then it's a decent enough server, but be ready for a fair few disconnects. I think in overall terms of quality, Hellground is a better choice, but I don't think that Lube for Grandma is a bad server. It's one of the better TBC servers. It just needs a bit more cooking time before it's ready for Prime, but it is promising. Hello sailors, thank you for watching the video, hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to support me in my future videos, there's a Patreon link down there if you want to go that way, or by request I've now added a direct PayPal donate button, so if you want to do it that way, do it that way. There's other things you can do. You can follow me on social media like Facebook and Twitter, and why not have a look at these other videos I'm linking on the screen right now. Anyway, that's all, bye bye.